my friends, it is Tim and Tammy time, and we have come to the burial place, or the possible burial place, of Doc Holliday. Doc Holliday was born in Griffin, Georgia, which is where we're at right now, and he grew up here, and he became a dentist. His mama died with tuberculosis though, and while he was taking care of her, he contracted tuberculosis, and he went out west because it was said that if you would go to a drier, less humid climate, that you'd live longer. And when he went out there, at first he tried to set up a dentist office, but he coughed bad from having the tuberculosis, and a lot of people, he lost a lot of his patients because of that. And he found out that he was good at gambling, and he played a game called Faro, and he was a good Faro dealer. I think that's F-A-R-R-O. He was a good Faro dealer. He moved around. He became friends with Wyatt Earp. One of the stories is that he saved Wyatt Earp's life. Somebody was holding a gun on Wyatt Earp, and he come up behind that person and held a gun to that person, and everybody had to put their guns down, and Wyatt Earp made it out alive. And then he and Wyatt Earp kind of traveled around together. And then a lot of things that are written about him, a lot of the reasons that we know anything about Doc Holliday is because of, a lot was written by Bat Masterson. But we have to keep in mind that this is a long time ago, and none of this can be documented. We know that he died with tuberculosis in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. And we also know that they believe that he's buried there on a hill in Potter's Field, because he had no money, and that's where they buried the people who had no money. But he died in November. And they say that in November, that the ground's frozen in Colorado. I've never been there in November. I don't know. Potter's Field is up on a hill. It's a hard trip. Even in the summertime, it's a hard trip. So it would have been really hard for them to take him up on that hill and bury him. So we don't know if he's buried in Colorado or not. But the other story is that his daddy, who was a well-to-do Southern gentleman, went out and picked him up and brought him back home to Griffin, where he was born. And that this right here, these two unmarked graves, are Doc Holliday's and his father's. And
not to be confused with Doc Hollywood.
And the reason that these graves are unmarked is that his daddy knew, since he was a gunfighter and he had such a reputation, his daddy decided to not mark the graves because of grave robbers and curious people who'd want to dig these graves up. So we don't know if Doc Holliday's here or if he's out there in Colorado, but one thing's for sure, he's buried somewhere.
He is not still alive.
Surely not. There's a good case for this in that we're right here. Are these the Hollidays down here? Supposedly,
right here,
all of the Hollidays are buried right in this same area.
I don't either.
Anyway, it's said that all the Hollidays, the rest of the Holliday family, is buried right here.
Scattered.
Right here in this cemetery, which would make sense that Doc and his daddy were buried there. So nobody can be sure. We don't know if he's buried here or if he's buried in Colorado. But the fact is, we can both claim it. This is Griffin, Georgia. So, you know, he was born here. Why shouldn't he be buried here? Yeah, I'm sitting in a different place. I'm not in the right place now, but that's a wild looking, you can't look in. Anyway, Doc Holliday was a card dealer at a casino in Las Vegas, New Mexico. And then he later owned his own casino. And one day a man came in, I don't know, he was upset with his wife or with another man or running around, whatever. The man come in, he was shooting up Doc Holliday's place, and Doc Holliday just come out, just shot him. These are just stories, you know, and this is the Old West, and we don't really know what's true and what we're just telling. But, you know, Doc Holliday, you can't mention Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp without saying shootout at the OK Corral. And one of the reasons that they believe that Doc Holliday was brought back home here by his daddy is because Doc Holliday was raised a Southern gentleman, and being a gunfighter, he had a larger than life reputation, but actually it wasn't necessarily a good reputation among his family. And that's why his daddy went out there. Well, that's not why. His daddy went out there and got him, because his daddy was of means. He was a wealthy man, and he wanted his son back home, and he went out there and he got him and he brought him home. That's why we think he's buried in Griffin, Georgia. Or that's another reason we think he's buried in Griffin, Georgia. The biggest reason I think he's buried in Griffin, Georgia is because I live close to Griffin, Georgia, and it's a really cool story. Talk about a famous person buried close by. I mean, this is back before we had Hollywood. This is what people, you know, they read the little thin nickel books. It was an old paperback, and it was about the Wild West, and these guys were larger than life. Give you a good shot. Maybe you can pause the video and read it. He was 36 years old. He had a girlfriend. He had a common law wife. He never married her. Her name was Big Nose Kate. Her name was Mary Catherine, and she was known for having a big nose. And you see the picture, she's got a big nose. All right. This is Doc Holliday Lane. Doc Holliday is in block 11. And you'll see the marker. Looks like a historic marker up there above his and his daddy's grave. If it is their grave, because I'm just telling you, I have not found any more Hollidays. Haven't found any more Hollidays at all. There's a lot of unmarked graves. And his grave's from 1800s, so I don't know. But I hadn't seen any more Hollidays out here. And I did read that was part of the reason they believed that he was buried here even more firmly, is because the rest of the Holliday family's buried here. So, anyway, it's like all other graveyards that we go to. This one's got these blocks, though. It kind of gives you an idea what's what.